And I'm with Light Productions and the producer of Light Television. And I want to welcome you to another fun evening with Maverick Rabbi Gerson Winkler. Today is Saturday evening, December 14th, 2002. Rabbi entitles this talk, "The Donkey, the Lion, and the Prophet, the Sanctity of Personal Spirituality." And his description for tonight's talk is drawing from a powerful ancient Jewish mythology. Rabbi Gerson will explore the consistent theme in Judaism around the importance of one's own individual life journey and the responsibility of the community toward individuating rather than conglomerating. People are easily sidetracked, says Gerson, by the influences of family, society, and those with higher credentials whose well-meaning counsel often diverts them from their core truth. The story of the donkey, the lion, and the prophet is a story that reminds us of the sanctity of our individuality, that we need to listen to others, but not at the expense of our own voices. Through humor, storytelling, and the sharing of ancient wisdom, the visiting rabbi from New Mexico will, as he always does, enrich us, empower us, and entertain us. Here's Gerson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will open up with a drink. The commercial for Mellow Yellow. Well, it's probably just water, right? Yeah, this water. It has
to be a prayer tonight.
It's great. But there's still a little bit mellow yellow in there, too. It's sweet. This is from Nan and Rick. I don't know if I should trust this. Coming from you guys. But it tastes okay. The extra religious today. I forgot my whole thing. I'm sorry. I forgot the text, the Hebrew text. So, thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure. I guess I'll have to do it verbatim and tell you the story. But first we'll do a little chant, a little opening chant. It's a beautiful chant. And it goes like this. It's from the Middle East. It's a chant put together by the two sons of Abraham. Shalom Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Elyon. Om Shanti Om, Shanti Om, Shanti Om, Shanti Om, Shanti Om, Shanti Om, Salam, Shanti Om, Shanti Om, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Elyon. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Elyon. You like this? This is the historic background for the story I'm about to tell you. This is Hebrew for David, Solomon, Rachvaam, Yirvaam. A long time ago, 2,800 years ago, the tribes of the Jewish people back then were united under one chieftain. His name was Shlomo, known as Solomon. Shlomo. Shlomo literally means peace. Under his reign, throughout his whole life and his whole career as the chieftain of all the 12 tribes of ancient Israel, there was no war. Do you know why there was no war? Why? Because he had 1,000 wives. So there was no time. Who's got time for war? You know, every time he reached for his sword, honey, ugh, you're right there. From one bedroom to the other, they dragged his poor body day and night. In between being dragged from room to room, he managed to write a few classical works, the book of Mishle, or Proverbs, and the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, in which he writes, "Vanity of vanity, all this vanity, come here, you son of a gun." And they dragged him off to the bedroom again. "There's nothing new under the sun," he whined in his books, as they dragged his poor, helpless body across the hallways from one bedroom to the other. So therefore, this is a little notice to all you people, that if you want to stop war, why waste time protesting? Just if you're a woman, keep your man in bed longer. I guarantee you there'll be a lot less war. If you don't keep us in bed long, we go out to war. It's just our nature, because we don't bleed. So we go looking for it. Women bleed every month. Men are desperate for some blood. So we go out to war. Slay me. Solomon's time, there was no war. His castle, his palace was totally femininized. There was no war. It was a time of complete peace. Very smart man. See, instead of going to war against his enemies, he would marry their daughters. And so it was a very political marriages, and it worked. In fact, I wrote a letter to Arafat the other day. Haven't heard back, you know. I did forget to send a picture, but okay. Now, so here's the story of this beautiful united kingdom. All the tribes are united under the great Solomon, Shlomo, which happens to be the word for peace in Hebrew. Peace in Hebrew is shalom, shalomo. It comes from the word shalema or shalem, which means wholeness, right? Wholeness is peacefulness. When you get it all together, you have a little peace. Wholeness. Now, this guy, being such a successful chieftain of the tribes and such a powerful leader, because he was married to the daughters of the princesses of so many nations all around him, so many other nations, other peoples around him, he became very powerful. He had the whole world of the Middle East putty in his hands without even going to war. You know, what father-in-law is going to go to war against his son-in-law? So he decided to focus inward, not in himself, but in the nation. And he developed the nation into a great empire. And he built our first major, humongous temple. Until that time, we did not really have a temple. It wasn't really part of the plan to have a temple, actually. We had a little box that we carried through the wilderness when we left Egypt, 1300 BC EFG. We carried this box that had the tablets that Moses brought down from the mountain. And we had the broken ones and the new ones. After Moses broke them, remember, did you ever see the Mel Brooks film? Right? The Lord has given us 10 commandments, right? This is Rabbi Mel Brooks' commentary on the book of Exodus. Suggested reading. So there were the tablets of betrayal that Moses broke when he saw the people dancing around the golden calf. And then God calls him back up in the story and says, very sweet, Yeshakochacha sheshibarta. All power to you that you broke those tablets. But come back upstairs and write another one. this is about reconciliating what has until then been betrayal. And so the Ark was called the Ark of the Covenant because it contained symbol of betrayal and a symbol of reconciliation. That even if things get broken, not everything has to get lost. And the people carried this box of the covenant through the wilderness for 40 years. And they brought it into the land of their ancestors that they returned to after their sojourn in Egypt. And then there are many stories about how they have so many wars, and the Philistines capture the ark and take it from the Hebrews, and the Philistines start getting sick because they have the ark. You saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, so you have a sense of the power of this box, which now sits in a warehouse in Washington, D.C. So finally, to make a longer, very historic story short, David in Hebrew, see, his name is spelled backwards, even when you spell it forwards. So David becomes the chieftain after the first king, Saul. Second king is David. And David goes to war against the Philistines. The Philistines go to war against David. They do this all the time. And they love each other. And so David recaptures the Ark of the Covenant. The Philistines gladly want to get rid of it anyway. It's making everybody sick. And David is afraid of it too. So he gives it to Obed-Edom, some Edomite, descendants of Jacob's twin brother Esau. He says, here, you keep it in your garage for a while, because he wanted to make sure that they wouldn't get sick either. He figured this guy would be all right to keep it in his garage. He kept it in his garage. He saw nothing happen. And so he took the ark. He brings it back to his city that he had conquered from the Jebusites, the city that now is known as Jerusalem, which literally means that which shows you peace. They really knew how to name those cities back then. We shall name this city that which will show you peace. And so Jerusalem becomes the capital of the kingdom, the nucleus of the tribe of Judah that rules over the tribes of Dan and all the other tribes. Good, very good. Then Solomon is born in Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. He takes over the kingship from David. David has 18 wives, many, many princes and princesses. And who does the reign go to? It goes to the son of his affair with Bathsheba. And so why does it go to Solomon, son of Bathsheba, with whom David had that terrible affair that you saw on CNN? Because David stood up and acknowledged before the people that he was wrong. Bathsheba and David stay married. She becomes one of his queens. Solomon is one of the children born. First child dies. Second son is Solomon. Solomon takes on the kingship of the people later. And Solomon begins to build a temple and to build a great palace. Because Solomon has nothing else to do. There's no war. So you are full of riches from all your fathers-in-law and mothers-in-law. And from the Queen of Sheba, with whom he was having a very good relationship too, our story tells us. And so he became very wealthy, and he began to involve all the people of the land in building the temple and putting the ark, that little box, in the center of this big giant temple. And they built an altar, and they did everything really sweet. And he made himself a nice palace and lived happily ever after. When Solomon is alive, toward his old age, when he is about to leave the world, one of his goons, one of his strong men, one of his military mighty warriors, is a man named Yeroboam. or in English, was it Jeroboam or something? Yerovam. Now, Yerovam is of the tribe of Joseph. Solomon is of the tribe of Judah. Remember the story of Joseph and his many-colored petticoat? Right? So Judah is the one that sells Joseph to passing nomads who then sell him to Egypt, right? And Judah is the one that reconciles with Joseph at the end of the story. Yigash Elav Yehuda, and Judah approached Joseph. And they made up, and Joseph says, you know who I am? I'm your brother that you sold to Egypt, and here I am, and I'm here to feed you. You know the whole story? You saw the movie? Good. Or you read the book in a Super 8 motel night table. So Yerovam is upset with Solomon. You know why? Because Yerovam is although he has a very high position with Solomon, he's getting a little unnerved about the politics of Solomon, about the politics of extravaganza, of putting too much responsibility and taxation on the people to maintain this great big temple and the palace of Solomon. Because everything is inward. Everything is developing inwardly, and nothing is happening out there anymore. And so he splits, and he says, I'm going my own way. I don't like the politics of the kingdom of Judah, Yehuda. I, who am of the tribe of Joseph, we never got along. I had a nice job with Saul, but our politics are shifting. I don't like the way he's doing things. I'm out of here. So he leaves. He goes up north, El Norte, to where the tribe of Joseph has land, apportioned to them. As he is walking along the road, heading up north, to the north country, a wild man comes. Wow! You know, one of those naked men with loincloths. This was the original Federal Express. In the books of our people, in the Hebrew scrolls, they're called the prophets, the Nevi'im, or the prophetesses. We spoke about the prophetesses, the women prophets, last time we met. So here comes a wild prophet, and he grabs Yerovam's cloak and rips it off him and tears it to shreds. Tears it to 12 shreds. And Yerovam looks at him and says, what are you, a madman? This is a brand new cloak I got. What are you doing to my coat? You son of a prophet, you. And the prophet says, thus saith the Lord, whatever that is. Thus saith the Infinite One. Like these strips of clothing that I've made of your coat, so shall the tribes of Israel be ripped and torn from Judah. And God is giving you 10 of these tribes to rule over, for you to rule over. Because God, too, is unhappy with the extravagance that's going on in Judea over this temple, over the templification and the edification of what was supposed to have remained portable, infinite. Right? And religion does this, right? We start with a beautiful ideal, and then we take what is such a beautiful idea, an ideal, something that is infinite, with infinite possibility, and we scrunch it up and narrow it down into a very small little pocket. So the prophet is coming and saying, God wants you to unravel this. So it'll be free again. So God is giving you 10 tribes you should be the king over, and leaving 2 with the little Judahites down south. Wow, this makes him feel good. It's also, he drops his lawsuit against the prophet for tearing up his garment, and he continues heading north to the north country And before you know it, well, how is this going to happen? Oh, not a problem. You see, there's opposites at work all the time in life. One opposite creates sufficient friction for the sustenance and evolution of the other opposite. Enter Rahba'am. Rahba'am is one of the descendants of Solomon, one of the sons of Saul. And he is the one that's appointed to be king of the Judeans, of the tribes, after Solomon dies. Rahba'am takes over. The elders of Israel come to Rahba'am and say, hey, we hope you're going to continue in the ways of your great fathers. And we hope you won't, overtax us or tax us and burden us with this temple building stuff that your father did. Rahba'am is what's called in Latin an asshole. So Rahba'am responds by saying, oh, absolutely not. I will not tax the people as my father did. On the contrary, I will tax them heavier than my father did. And so, he does. This, in turn, empowers Mr. Jeroboam. Because all the people are starting to be really, really upset with this, and they're saying, well, Jeroboam is a great warrior who used to work for Solomon, and he's up north, and people are starting to follow him up there. And he didn't like the politics of Solomon. Let us join with him. And before you know it, the prophecy comes true, and the tribal leaders and the followers are gravitating increasingly, day by day, to Jeroboam, who stands on the platform and says, if you elect me, why, I will not tax you at all. And you can elect priests from anybody, not just the descendants of Aaron, as is the tradition down in Judea. You'll be more freedom with me. They have one temple, we'll have two temples. And we won't even have to make a big deal out of them. We'll just build a little stone altar. We'll have a lot of fun. People are gravitating like crazy. This is like old, ancient politics that has never changed. Still goes on today, right? Somebody's hard on us. What do? Somebody else gets up and promises that, what an idiot. Come with me. We'll do it totally different. And then the same thing occurs all over again. This is the beginning of especially the South American dictatorship program. Same deal, right? One dictator overthrows the other dictator. One revolutionary overthrows a cruel dictator and then becomes even more cruel than the dictator that was overthrown. So Jeroboam begins his own kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. That's what it's called. It's called Israel. Yisrael. Everybody was called Israelites or Hebrews back then. Yisraelim, Bnei Yisrael, children of Yisrael, because Israel was the name of their ancestor, the ancestor of the 12 tribes, the ancestral father of the 12 tribes, whose name was Yaakov, whose name got changed when he wrestled with the spirit in the darkness of the night, and he was renamed Yisrael, which means one who wrestles with El, God, or the power. Literally, the word El means power. The power. The power. Okay, so this becomes the kingdom of Israel. Rahba'am's kingdom gets the name of his tribe, Yehuda. Because there's nobody there except from people from the tribe of Judah. And some people from the tribe of Benjamin. And some people from the tribe of Levi, because if you want a priest, you have to get somebody from the tribe of the Levites, who are descendants of Aaron. And you need Levites, too, to have your temple thing, right? So there are a few of those people down there. But Jeroboam has 10 of the tribes. The rest of the tribes are up and loyalty and up all the way up north, a northern kingdom called Israel. So now the one Jewish nation, indivisible with liberty and justice for all, has been divided. That division emanating directly from the man of wholeness, whose name spells wholeness. From wholeness comes division. Welcome to the Garden of Paradox. Something we've talked about often here in this room, and something which is very much the theme of the Hebrew Scriptures. It's about paradox, it's about contradiction, it's about real life and how to wrestle in it. Oh my God, look what happened. Well, okay. Now these guys is where the temple is. This is where all the politically correct stuff is happening. The temple is there, the ark is there, the Kohanim, everything is really sweet and beautiful here. Up here, they ain't got the ark, and the ark is the nucleus that held the people together through their entire journey and was the focal point of the people, and they ain't got no ark up here. They got no box with broken things and fixed things. They got nothing. All they got is some stone in Dan and in Samaria. He builds 2 temples, one in Dan because Dan is so far north, it's hard for the people of the northern tribes to make it all the way down to the mountains of Shomron, of Samaria. And so he builds a temple for the local people and a temple for the northern tribes. He's a really good guy. People love this guy. He's very popular. And so he begins to change a lot of things, like you don't have to be a descendant of Aaron to be the priest, and you can offer your sacrifices anywhere. The law, which violated the original law that came from Moses, that no more sacrifices anywhere, because as the ancient rabbis taught, Moses was trying to wean the people from offering sacrifices to begin with. And so no longer could we offer animal sacrifices anywhere. It was only in one altar that was in one hilltop in one part of the world, and only through one particular clan, the Kohanim, who were allowed to do the offering for you. This was a way of narrowing down animal sacrifice in an attempt to wean the people from worshiping the Creator through sacrifices. Thus, the ancient teachers told us. Very sweet. Well, as he's getting very popular, he's kind of losing touch with the original principles. And the people are really all for him because he's popular and doing things real easy for them. And he's introducing other ways of worship that were not Jewish, that are borrowed from neighboring nations in the North Country. And things are getting so bad that the northern part of Israel is even forbidding anybody from the northern tribes to make a pilgrimage down to Jerusalem. So let's say you lived in the northern part of the country, and you wanted to go to Jerusalem because the ark is there, and the big temple is there, and all the big ceremonies, and you want to go down to Jerusalem for Passover. You couldn't. The northern kingdom had created a wall. Not a physical one, but a militaristic one, as well as a legal one, prohibiting the people from going down. They were stopped. You couldn't go down. You had to sneak around. You had to go all the way. People of the same tribes were at war with each other. This was a civil war without a war yet. They had been so totally split, so totally alienated from each other. And now begins our story. Now that you have the historical background, we can begin the story. Once upon a time, as this was happening, as the 2 kingdoms were split and the people were split, a young man whose name is not given in the story. This story appears in the Malachim Aleph Perek Yud Gimel, which is Hebrew for in the first book of Kings, in the Hebrew Scriptures, chapter 13. So it says that Yeroboam was standing on the altar in one of his temples, making a big ceremony and offering up incense to the different gods that he had been introducing to the people up north, when suddenly a young prophet, whose name is not given, comes out from Judah territory down south. He's a southerner. And he's coming and making his way up north because he's sent on a mission. He got a revelation. And the revelation is sending him north. See, God is a very bad clown that does very bad things all the time. This poor Schmendrick. I mean, you know, there are still nice prophets living up north too, as we see later in the story. There's Achia, there's Edo, there are other prophets who are living up north all the time in the north country. Why is God sending this poor schlepper from Judah, from the tribes that are despised by the northern tribes, to prophesy against the king of the northern tribes? That's how bad God is. God loves to make trouble. This is a Jewish teaching. You know, other religions teach you God. Oh, God is beautiful, perfect, holy, loving, merciful. Judaism teaches the real thing. Bullshit. God's a mean old sucker. Loves to play games with us all the time. This is how Moses describes God in the book of Deuteronomy. You know, Moses says to the people before he dies, he says, you want to know God? I will tell you about God. K'nesher yo'ir kino al gozalav yirachef. God is like an eagle, a mother eagle, stirring its nest, hovering over the young. Right? Life is going so good. I paid my dues. I paid my taxes. I paid my car insurance. Right? And then something else happens. So God is always stirring our nest so that we, like the chicks in the eagle's nest, are forced out of the nest and fall, by virtue of which we learn to fly. So the eagle kicks its chicks out of the nest so that by their falling they will learn to fly or die. Fly or die. See? And so in life, God's involvement in our lives, our tradition teaches, it's not just about sitting up there in some throne with remote control, you know, but stirring our lives, making trouble, upsetting the flow every now and then. I feel so good. Oh, yeah? Oh, no. Right? Happens all the time. And through our being stirred is how we come to the greatest gift that the Creator wishes to impart to us, which is the gift of knowing our power. The gift of knowing your uniqueness. You will never know it if you're just hanging around the Garden of Eden all day. It's boring there. There's nothing to do but eat fruit all day. But when the snake slithers its way and stirs you out of your nest, then, woo, you're alive. That's why the first thing that the man says to the woman after they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden is, "Wow!" He says, "You are Aim Kol Chai, baby," which means you are the mother of aliveness. Thank you, the mother of all life, he calls her. Why? They didn't have a kid yet. He should have said, "Bitch, I can't believe you did this to us. We had it so good there. You had to, I don't want to go there. My future lawyer is going to contact your future lawyer." Right? Oh, he's happy. He's so happy they got kicked out. It was death to just be in the nest the whole time. Why do you think Abraham takes Isaac to sacrifice him, to kill him? Any one of us would have done the same thing. Isaac was 37 years old, according to the chronology of the Bible. He was born when Sarah was 90. They come down the mountain after the nearest sacrifice. Sarah dies at 120. That makes him 37 years old. Of course you would take him up the mountain to kill him. 37 years old, still living at home. You take the sucker out and you kill him. There's nothing else you can do. 25, 28, 30, you give a little grace period. 35, all right, pushing it a little bit. 37, Abraham was very compassionate, but he waited that long. Sarah, I'm taking the kid out for a Robert Bly thing, a men's retreat. Got any knives? So this poor sucker, he's a new prophet. He's a young man. He just graduated from prophet school. He got a PRD, and he's living near the temple. Every day he goes to the great temple. Says, "Oh, I love being a prophet. I feel God's inspiration in me all day and night. And there's the Ark of the Covenant and the altar. Oh, I love it here. Life is so good." Prophet, And God spoke to the prophet, this young unnamed prophet, and says, "You know what? I got your first mission. All right, I'm ready to go. What do I do? I want you to go and talk to the king." "No problem. He's only a few blocks away." "Not that king." "Oh, that king." "What? But that's up in the north country. They don't want us up there." "That's where I want you to go." A poor schlepper has to leave the nest now and fall. These are just sound effects. Please don't panic. It'll be over as soon as I get over here. And he makes his way up north. And he comes straight to Yervam. Now, as he's told, as he's walking from the south country to the north country, it's a long walk up. The instructions come to him as follows. When you complete your mission, you are not to return by the same way you came, instruction number 1, nor are you to eat or drink in the place of your mission. Okay. So the young man heads up north. I know this doesn't look like, this is more like east to west, but that's if you think linearly. And he comes to the land of the northern tribe, and he goes straight to where Yervam is. First he goes to the palace, nobody home. There's a big note in the door saying, "Gone to worship idols, located at altar number 3, south of Dan, in Bethel." He heads straight to Bethel. He finds Yervam standing on top of the altar offering the incense. And he comes and he says, "Thus, Ko Amar Adonai, thus does the Infinite One speak and say through me, this altar of yours shall one day split in half, and the bones of your priests shall be burned upon it." Yervam gets off the altar and he says, "Seize him! Tafsuhu!" he yells. "Seize him!" But then Yervam experiences a slight technical difficulty. His arm, the story tells us, refuses to come back. And he's stuck like this. Look! Over there! He doesn't know what to do. He's got to save face. There are hundreds of people around him. And he's stuck with his arm outstretched. I can see my house from here. Did you seize him yet? You seize him too. You seize the one who seized him. Which way to where? that way. And there he was, stuck like this. You know? This is ancient Jewish humor. Right? So, not only is God a troublemaker, but God is also a clown. And saw an incredible opportunity for just perfect humor. I mean, there are so many other things that could have happened. The earth could have opened up, but that would have been old hat. You know? This was fun. You know? And there he was. Did you see him yet? Look! A meteor! Who didn't see the meteor? Seize all those who did not see the meteor! And he went on and on. Nobody knew what to do with him. People began to hang their laundry on his arm. There he walked like this. So, at some point, the king realized, you know, there ain't no way I'm going to get my arm back. Maybe I should talk to this man, because evidently he's got some power or some, how you say, clout. So he says to the young prophet, please, pray to your God. Please, this doesn't look good. And so the prophet prayed, and his arm came back. Thank you. And so he then says to the prophet, seeing, and then the altar begins to split. So the Yervam realizes, oh my God, this guy's the real thing. And his word really is from God. Wow. So to honor him, he says, please, will you come with me and dine with me? But the young prophet, remembering his instructions on his way, said, sorry, Your Highness, but I was instructed that I'm not allowed to go back the same way I came, and I'm not allowed to eat or drink in the place of my mission. Very good. So the king lets him go. And he goes some roundabout way, you know, he finds a map that was composed by Moses, and because it tells you how to go, you know, the longest possible way anywhere. And he heads back toward the south, the long way. Goes through Cleveland. When I was penny pinching in my life, you know, I used to take these cheap flights. It would take me 80 years to get anywhere. I'm still traveling. Somehow I land in Missoula every now and then on my trips. I'm really on my way to Kansas City from New Mexico. So he goes off. Very good. He completed his mission. He gave the warning. He made an impression. And everything is cool. All right? Now here comes something really, really hard. It goes like this. Way back, I mean not way back, but back in the villages that surround the northern kingdom of Israel, there is, this is Samaria, what is today known as Samaria, Shomron, right? So like the Samaritans, Shomronim, right? Samaritans are a sect of the Jewish people to this very day. So, but they always had this enmity between the southern and the northern, the Shomronim. So the Judahites didn't like the Samaritans didn't like the Judahites, nobody liked each other. But they were still the same people. In other words, if a Samaritan was a male, you would trust him to circumcise your boy. So there were certain laws that the rabbis enacted to make sure that Jews never forgot their Samaritan brothers were legitimate Jews and were allowed to do circumcision, you're allowed to eat their food and stuff like that. But that's a whole separate story. We can devote a whole evening to that. They had their own script. So you would write your Yirvam like this in the old Hebrew script that the Samaritans continued to preserve. That's Yirvam. This is the Hebrew that came to us after our Babylonian exile 2,500 years ago. This was the pre-Babylonian exile Hebrew. The same letters. Very different. This is how Moses wrote the Torah. What?
Is that good Samaritan?
I don't know if they're any better than you and me. But sometimes they are good. I spent quite a few months with them because I wanted to learn the original Hebrew language. And they are the preservers of it. How did I know they were preservers of it? I read it in the Talmud. The Talmud says you want to know the original Hebrew language or script, the way we wrote it, go to the Shomronim, the people of Samaria. Okay, in Samaria lived an old prophet. See, there were prophets up there. God could just call somebody here instead of long distance, you know. I mean, it's totally not economical the way this thing happened. So instead he schlepped this poor guy all the way from Judah. It's ridiculous. So up here in the northern kingdom lived an old prophet, Navi Zaken. One of the boys of the old prophet, one of his sons, comes running home from Bethel to Samaria, nearby, and says, "Dad, you'll never believe what I saw." What'd you see? This prophet that came from Judah, he said the altar will split, and it split, and the king said, "Seize him," and his arm was like that. It was really cute. And then other sons came and told him too, and the word spread like wildfire. This guy was coming up and doing all this magic up there. And so the old prophet says, "I'm not a prophet. I have been so alone up here. There's not a lot of prophets. I want to meet the young man. Go and get the young man. Bring him over here." And so they went to get him, but he told them, "Can't go, because I ain't allowed to go back the same way I came. I ain't going to eat or drink there." So they came back and told the dad what the prophet said. He can't. So the dad got on a donkey, and he headed out there in his late model donkey. He caught up with the prophet, the young prophet, and he said, "Hey, an angel of God appeared to me," that's right, "and told me that you could come back with me. In fact, you should come back with me, because the instructions you had didn't apply to me, because I'm a prophet like you. Anochi Navi Kamocha. I am a prophet like you. So I know about the prophecy you got, and it's been changed. The instructions have been changed. An angel told me that." The young prophet believed him. And he turned around and he walked back the same way he came. And he spent the night eating and drinking in the place of his mission with the old prophet. Suddenly, the old prophet's mouth opened up, and his tongue began to wag, and he began to speak what resonated in him, over which he had no control. And the words that came out of his mouth was, "Thus resonates the Infinite One, because you have misused your privilege of this mission and not followed the instruction. You will not be buried with your ancestors." And then they continued eating and had dessert. And next morning, the young prophet they saddle a donkey for him. He gets on the donkey. He rides home to go a different way. And a lion, a lion found him and deaded him. The most literal way I can translate the Hebrew. The lion found him and deaded him. And behold, the young prophet was lying on the road. And the lion was just sitting there. And also the donkey was just standing nearby and grazing. So here's a scenario. People are walking by, they see a lion just sitting around, the dead man lying, and a donkey grazing. And this was a very strange phenomenon. So the word spread until it reached the old prophet who saddled his donkey. They had a lot of donkey saddling going on. Actually, in English, it sounds much better. They saddled his ass. So they saddled his ass, and he rode out, and he found this lion sitting there, and a donkey grazing, and the corpse. And he knew instantly that this was what you call glibly divine, because otherwise the lion would have at least chased the donkey away. The donkey would have run away if not the lion had chased him. And the donkey would have been eaten by the lion, or the lion would have been ripped apart the body of the prophet, but none of this happened. Prophet is dead, nice and clean, maybe a slight puncture wound to the neck. And the lion is sitting there yawning, looking at all the passers-by. Somebody's collecting money. And the donkey is grazing. And so the old prophet says to his sons, take this man. And they brought him back to the house, and he says, and they buried him. And he says, I want to be buried when I die. I want to be buried where he is buried, my bones with his bones. I once asked my teacher back in Jerusalem, back in the old days when I was a normal yeshiva student, I said, what does that mean? Bury me with the young prophet, my bones with his bones. I mean, what's the difference? What, you're going to bury me and then you're going to bury my bones separately? And my teacher said that, well, what they used to do in ancient times, in ancient Israel, was when somebody died, they did not bury them in the cemetery right away. They would bury them in a deep swamp, swampy place that they had, so that the body could decompose. After which they then took the bones and buried it in a particular plot, family plot, family land, or so on and so forth. It was a very strange thing. He was drinking vodka at the time, but you never know these old traditional ways of how they used to deal with the questions of environmental pollution and overcrowded cemeteries. And that's why you find a lot about bones, my bones being buried. Bones, bones, bones. Anyway, whatever happened, however it happened, this is the end of the story. Now, there are some who look at the story and say, well, this is a literal story, part of the stories of the Hebrew Scriptures. And in the mystical tradition of our people, they, while not disclaiming that the story actually might have happened, they're really not interested in whether it happened or not. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who lived in the 2nd century, says like this. He says, a prophet with no name. Isn't there a song like that? Dun, 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 dun. No? No? Prophet with no name? And this story happens so abruptly in the middle of the story of the kingdoms being split. It's like a chapter in the middle of a whole story that doesn't seem to fit quite in the flow of the story. And so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his school, which was the school of the great Rabbi Akiva, the great mystic of the time, they say this story, more than anything, is a teaching, a powerful parable teaching, parabolic teaching about the sanctity of individual spirituality and the danger involved in surrendering your path to the voice of another. It's sort of like, I'm on my path. I know where I'm going. I got it down pat. And all of a sudden, somebody older and wiser with more credentials, a long, long line of credentials, and more pretty stationary than I, approaches me and listens to my story and says, that's not the way. Let me show you the right way. Who do I trust? When a person is set on their journey and they have a sense of the flow of their path, of their walk, and somebody else tries to tell you to do it differently, be very careful not to go back the same way you came. To go back is good, but not the same way you came. You know, like if you're a parent, so at some point or another, your children begin to leave you. Goodbye, parent. I've had enough of you, parent. I have grown kids. I have grandchildren. And there was a stage when my daughters, only into daughters, had, they got their teens and they're 19, they're 20, 21, 22. As they grew older, they grew farther apart. Hi, I'm here. Hello. Anybody home? Oh, it's him. Right? And then in latter years, they have become more affectionate and closer to me than I ever remember. Now they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and so there's a whole different relationship that has evolved, which could not have happened without that gap of moving away from in order to come back to. Did they come back to me in the same way that I wanted them near me back when they left? No. We don't make the journey back the same way we come. It's not always a healthy thing. It's very healthy to come back, but not the same way. To eat and drink in the place of the mission is also a very dangerous thing. You see what happened in the very first ancestor of our people. I know I say our, and some of you here are not descendants of the same ancestor. That's too bad. I really feel so sorry for you guys. But tonight, we have deputized all of you to become Hebrews. It's like the Talmud, the ancient teachings of the rabbis, says, in the beginning, God created schools of fish and flocks of geese and herds of buffalo and prides of lions. God, this smells good. And only one human couple, so as to teach us that no one can ever say to another, my ancestor is superior to yours. So, in the very beginning, there was a guy named Abraham. Abraham. He lived in Ur. See, here's Ur. Ur is today Iraq. We're going there soon to bomb and go to war because we love war. We want blood. Sorry, this old male stuff in me. And then there's a place up here called Haran. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Hana. It's a girlfriend of mine in the old days. I pay tribute to my former relationships whenever I can. And down here is Canaan. Okay, this is what becomes later known as the land of Israel, right? No, however it's shaped, So, down in Canaan land, it's down south. Here's Uruk, or Ur, actually, how it's really called. Okay, so Abraham is born in Ur. His daddy, Terah, wants to go to Canaan because they're not welcome up in Ur anymore because they're believing in humanity and they're doing all this social activism and they believe in a God who cares and compassion. And so they're not really welcome up here because this place is a big civilization that cannot tolerate dissent. So they're dissenters. So they have to leave. So Terah decides, I want to go down to Canaan because Canaan literally means without anything. It's Hebrew for here, Khan, only. It's poor. There's nothing here. Don't even come. Right? That's what the natives of Missoula have been telling everybody else for a long time. And nobody wanted to listen. And they kept migrating and migrating, where I live in a very remote, rural, third world part of New Mexico. Nobody knows where the hell it is. I don't even know where it is. I have to ask directions all the time. I call my wife on the cell phone as far as the range will let me. What do I do now? And she directs me home. And when I tell people, like, I go to Taos or something, say, so why are you living near Cuba? That's a very unfriendly place. And I say, yeah, it is. It really is. And that's why it's so peaceful there. Because nobody wants to move there because they all think it's very unfriendly. It's great, and we never tell people different. Very unfriendly place. So don't ever move there. And so down in Canaan, that's what they were telling people in the newspapers. Con Oni, here there's nothing. Terach wanted to come down here because here it's not like one big kingdom. There's like several millions of different tribes living around there, and they can just start life new. It's wonderful. So what does he do? But, he has a son who started this village up here. And so he's on his way down here, but he makes a detour and said, let's go to Haran first. And there he stops, and there he settles, and there the dream dies. So the danger of eating in the place of your mission is about how you can get so excited about this and end up sidetracked. Ah, God, I wish I had that job. I really want that job. I really want that job. Hello? I got that job? What do you mean? How soon do I have to start? Oh, can't wait 30 days? Tomorrow? Why? I mean, yeah, okay, right? When push comes to shove and the dreams come true, if Ed McMahon was to show up at my door with $10,000, I mean $10 million, right? So it's really 10,000 with inflation. So, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd probably send him somewhere else. So it's so interesting that Abraham's father, who procrastinates by sidetracking up north to Haran instead of heading straight down to dreamland, his name is Terach, which is Hebrew for procrastination. It actually means hesitation, hesitating. Terach means to hesitate. Okay, and Terach dies here. He dies here.
Well, was he unhappy?
I don't know. Nobody ever asked him. He dies there. He dies there. He might have been happy. If he wasn't happy, why would he have died? Right? When you're not happy, that's what keeps you going. I mean, look at Sweden. People are happy there, and they're committing suicide all the time. So, life is good, because the eagle stirs our nest and keeps us alive. Good. So, finally, Terach dies. Abraham. So whether Terach was happy or not, we don't know. But now the problem is he's got this whole clan up there that he schlepped all the way from Ur, and Abraham is the oldest, or the leader of the clan at the time, and they don't know what to do. Should they stay in Haran? What should they do? Daddy brought us here, Daddy died on us. Then Abraham hears a voice. Hello there. He says, who is that? It's me again, the eagle. What do you want? I want you to go to yourself. In the English translation it says, and God spoke to Abram saying, get thee forth. It's so sad. In the Hebrew it literally says, lech, which means go, lecha, which means to you. Go to yourself. El ha'aretz asher areka, to the land that I will show you. Now Abraham is going, what? God sounds funny. Go to myself, to the land that God will show me. Now which one is it? It's sort of like in the 2nd century they asked Rabbi Akiva, Master, is everything preordained or is there free will? And the rabbi said, everything is preordained. And the choice is yours. Right? Typical Jewish answer. That's why the classical old book of Jewish philosophy, the 12th century, is called Guide to the Perplexed. So, Abraham is confused. I'm supposed to go to myself and go inward to me to find my personal truth to the land that God will show me. I don't understand that. Well, Abraham finds out what it means because he just follows his heart. And his heart is where his daddy's dream originally was. And he wants to go to Canaan. And he goes down to Canaan. And there, the Creator speaks to him again, says, bingo! Because I don't want to show you anything that isn't you. In order to find out what my path is, I have to go in here. Because nobody knows more clearly than you and I. Nobody can tell you what your path is. Ein adam yodea b'tzar chaviro. Right? In the ancient teachings about Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, we're supposed to fast, not eat, not drink, unless nobody's watching. So, what happens if you are a very sick person? I mean, diseased and sick and weak, and you need to eat and drink. You're dying. On the holy day of Yom Kippur, the law is you must eat, because your life comes first, your health comes first. Then a second hypothetical question arises as follows. What if 100 of the foremost physicians of the world check you out and say, you will not get any worse if you fast? What's the law then? And the rabbis again ruled, the law is we listen to the patient. Why? Because nobody can know the pain of another. I can never know you. In relationships, people assume, we're getting married, we're in love. I know you. I've never been known before like I've been known by you. I know you. I love you. Oh, man. Oh, woman. And then 3 weeks later, I don't know you at all. Like a stranger to me. I feel like I'm talking to a stranger. And not the person I married. Not the person I dated last night. And on and on and on we do this. Right? Because the fact is we don't know. Each of us is a mystery. I mean, face it, we're even a mystery to ourselves. Like Rabbi Jackie Mason said. He said, I went to my psychiatrist. He said, you're not yourself. I said, if I'm not myself, why am I paying you? Let the real me pay you. Who can know? Nobody can. Right? So, lech lecha, go to yourself first. Therein, you will find where it is that you're spoken to. So the young prophet gets his mission. He gets his instruction. It's his instruction. It's his path. His way. If it was another prophet or prophetess, it would have been a different way. Walk backwards to the northern kingdom, and you may only go back on one foot. Whatever it might be. But his particular way was to do this. This is your path. Go, say these words, speak to the king, and go back a different way. Do not eat and drink. This was his spiritual path. This was his spiritual discipline. This is his particular avenue of exercising his mission. The old man represents the wiser, more experienced people in our lives who often give us advice, which is good, because we need the advice of the elders. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai continues, died in the 2nd century. We need the advice of the elders, but we also need to listen to the voice within. We need to hear both the voices from without, from the tradition, from the parents, from the elders, from the community, from the society, and we need to listen to our own voice and then have the two dialogue. In fact, there's an old law when the Sanhedrin stood. The Sanhedrin was the great legal court, religious court in ancient Israel that was run by the rabbis up until 23 ACDC, And then the rabbis left because of the corruption going on in the temple. The Pharisees left, and they went to Yavna and established their own Sanhedrin there. And the Sanhedrin was taken over in Jerusalem by the Sadducees, by the priests. So the Sanhedrin, back in the old days when they were running the Sanhedrin, the law was that if the elders ruled on a particular issue confronting the nation, you had to listen to that ruling. However, let's say the elders of Israel, all 70 elders, there were 70 elders sitting in the Sanhedrin. The 70 elders, to try a capital offense, you needed 70. You started with 23, and if they couldn't reach a consensus of not guilty, you kept adding 2 more people, 2 more people, 2 more people, all the way up to 70. So it was very hard to try anybody in a capital crime back then, when the Pharisees ran the Sanhedrin. Now, what happens if you are a young Kapuchnik straight out of Sanhedrin school, and you're sitting there amongst these great elders, the Supreme Court judges, and they have made a ruling, and you do not agree with it, and you remain silent in respect to the opinion of the elders? The law is, the Talmud tells us, you must bring a sin offering. You must do tshuva. You must repent, because you have committed a grave sin by being quiet, by not challenging the authorities. Because even though you're supposed to obey their ruling, that does not mean you're not obligated to challenge their ruling if you sense in your deepest self something wrong about it. Because perhaps your challenge might trigger a rethinking. Oh, he's right, that little young Kapuchnik that just came out of Sanhedrin school. Something to think about. Your silence is a crime. It is a crime to not challenge authority. Right? In the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, right? Moses is giving the law. Thus saith the Lord, this is the law. And 5 women challenge him and say, La Shma Kikalaka. Right? He said, this is the law. You come into the land shall be apportioned to the male heads of the household of each clan. And so Milcah, Chagla, Noah, and Tirzah, they come marching up to the elders of Israel. They stand before Moses and Eliezer the high priest and all the elders, and they say, hey, this is not fair. There ain't no boys in our family. You're going to just skip right over us to cousins and uncles? And Moses doesn't say, how dare you challenge the word of God. Moses says, Gee, maybe I got that one wrong. I better go back and re-examine. See? He humbles himself. He re-examines. The divine word comes to him again saying, they're right. You got that one wrong, buddy. You know, time for you to retire soon anyway. You got that one wrong. The law gets changed in midair, and the land gets apportioned to the daughters of Tzalafchat, who have no men in their family. And if you want to make sure that they get their own land, all you have to do is read the book of Joshua toward the end. And it said, and the apportionment of the land that was given to the daughters of Tzalafchat in accordance with the instruction of Moses. Challenging authority is very important in an honorable way, in a respectful way. Because you have a right to have your voice spoken. So the young prophet represents the uniqueness of the individual. The young prophet represents that part of the soul that's called the neshama, which is the God breath. Each one of us is breathed with life force in a way that nobody else is. That's why we look so funny and different, right? You look around the room, all these funny, cute people. Me being the funniest, cutest of them all. You know? Every one of us is configured so uniquely that there's no 2 people that are alike. Scientifically, now we know about fingerprints and all that stuff, right? Nothing is alike. Snowflakes, dandruff flakes, whatever. Nothing is similar. Everything is very, very unique. Very unique. So the neshama represents that aspect of my soul, of my consciousness, that is my uniqueness. That's why the highest name of the soul in the Hebrew tradition, the ancient tradition of the Hebrews, is Yechida, which means literally uniqueness or individualness. The donkey and the lion, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai continues, are symbolic too. They're symbolic of the other parts of the soul manifestation in our body. The donkey represents the body soul, the appetite of soul, grazing all the time, carrying the weight of everything, integrating everything. Everybody journeys in the story on a freaking donkey. Chamor in Hebrew. Everybody's riding a donkey in every other verse, and he saddled his donkey, and they saddled a donkey, and he rode on his donkey, and he picked up a donkey, and he ate with a donkey, he went out with a donkey. You know? It's donkey all the way. And donkey in Hebrew is chamor. Chamor, which literally means chamor. Chamor, which literally is from the, or etymologically, is from the word chomer, which means matter. This is matter. 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 Then you have the lion. The lion represents the in us, the warrior within. In the Hebrew tradition, the lion is always described as symbol of the ideal of the warrior. But the lion does not just go out and kill just because it has the power to. If it's not lunchtime, it won't kill anybody. Right? I was in Africa the other day. You know that, right? Discovery Channel. And, you see these animals grazing nearby. The lions are lying in the grass because it's not lunchtime. So the wildebeest aren't nervous about anything. They've done this before. They've been killed 100 times before. When it's lunchtime, the lions get up and they stretch. And they yawn, and they slowly make their way toward the deli. So the lion is the warrior, meaning a warrior means that I know my strength, but I do not flaunt it. But when it's needed, I'm the first one there. Like David is called a warrior, King David. Why? Because nobody knew who he was. He was a shepherd, schlepper, writing songs all freaking day. Writing psalms. Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Nobody really cared about it, gave a hoot about the guy. His lyrics never made it anywhere. He tried everything, rap, rock, R&B, nothing. He was a shepherd. So when Samuel the prophet is told to anoint someone from the house of Jesse, Jesse brings out all the boys except David. He brings out Harry, who has a PhD and a DDS and an HI, everything. He brings out Bill, who has an MD and a DH2 and a I don't know what, and a CIA. He brings out all the boys who have all the credentials, and Samuel says, nothing rings a bell. Don't you have anybody else in your family? Because God sent me here. And Jesse says, not really, except you mean the schmuck David out there. That good-for-nothing, worth-nothing guy out there with the shepsels all day, just writing songs and poetry. You don't mean him, do you? Well, bring him out. Let's try him out. He bring him out, and Samuel says, that's the guy, the schlepper here. See, nobody knew who he was. Now, how do we find out that he had anything? Maybe he was a schlepper. We find out a chapter later when the big giant guy comes, Goliath. 3, 5, 4, foolish. right? I smell people who are Jewish, right? And he challenges the Jews to a duel, right? Then David steps forth and says to Saul, let me go against him. I've killed a bear, I wrestled with a lion, right? Now he's bragging because now it's time to the warrior to come forth, and that is the warrior. I know my strength, but I don't need to flaunt it because I know it. But when I'm needed, I'll be the first one there. As opposed to a doctor who's sitting in a bus, for example, and someone has a heart attack, but I don't want anybody to know I'm a doctor. So, that doesn't really happen, but as an example of false humility, well, maybe it does happen, I don't know. So you see, my friends, what's happening here is soul retrieval needs to happen here. What's happening here with this young prophet is the moment that he compromises his selfhood by surrendering his path and direction to the path and direction of another, completely surrendering it. In that moment, his soul splits. His uniqueness is lying across the path, not walking on it anymore. His integration of self in body and in earth is standing there grazing aimlessly. His warrior is sitting out there. All different parts of the persona are separated one from the other so that no one is doing anything. So the story of the young prophet and the lion and the donkey is a story about self-compromise. And my teacher of Yozel Horowitz, a great mystic from Nevada Duck, in one of his writings, he writes about the Garden of Eden. He says, what was the great crime of eating a forbidden fruit? I mean, for heaven's sakes, their son Cain kills his brother. Manslaughter in the first degree. And he gets away with it. What's the big deal? And so he writes, do you know what the big deal was? It wasn't that they ate of the forbidden fruit. It was that they compromised the gift, the greatest gift in the whole world that the Creator has given every creature, the gift of self. Adam, what happened? She, maybe. Eve, what happened? It was a snake. Right? And therefore, the consequences in the story, is you surrendered your power to another. You're powerless to take food out of the earth. You're powerless to have an easy bringing life into the world. You're powerless until you return to the earth, which most people read it as until you die. But that's not what it says. It says until you return to the earth. Until you return to your relationship with the donkey, with the matter. Because the matter is what camouflages the spirit. All of what we seek way beyond ourselves is contained right in the donkey. All that we seek in the great seminars and all these paperbacks, 7 Ways to Enlightenment, are right in the donkey upon which we are riding throughout our life journey. They are in our body. They are in the earth. They are in all the physical, mundane stuff of life. That's where God hides. Shneur Zalman of Liadi, when he was a little boy, he lived in the 1700s. He's no longer alive. When he was a little boy, he was playing hide-and-go-seek when he noticed that the other kids stopped looking for him. So he went to his daddy, who was a great rabbi, and said, I'm so upset. I was playing hide-and-go-seek, and they stopped looking for me. And his father said, now you know how God feels. Because the Creator is concealed within the creation. This is why in the Hebrew, the name that we call the physical universe is Olam, which literally means vanished. That the Creator is vanished within the creation, concealed within the creation. So, if I'm not in my body, and if I'm not in my feeling place, my warrior place, my heart place, and if I'm not in my unique place, then I'm a dead young prophet. What brings me to the place where I lose all those parts of me and become fragmented? Surrendering myself to the selfhood of another. Surrendering my reality to the reality defined for me by someone else. This old prophet is coming with a definition of how it should be that he has created. He made up this thing about an angel telling him that you can come back with me. You know, for whatever reason, he was this kichesh lo, the scriptural verse tells us. He lied to him. But you see, that's not really a good translation of the word kichesh. Sheker is lying. Kichesh means kind of a white lie. You know, because an angel, you know, speaking to him all the time, maybe it's just a way to get him to listen to me. You know, it's kind of a roundabout way. Whatever it is, it's the snake's way. And the snake, in our tradition, is a very sacred creature whose role it is to be the trickster. Because the role of the trickster is to shake you out of your stupor, to challenge you. Are you really who you are? Or are you just feigning it? Are you who you are because of what you have? Or are you who you are in spite of what you have? See? Like in the book of Job, where Job loses everything and says, naked did I leave the belly of my mama, and naked I shall go back there. One of the many instances throughout the Hebrew Scriptures where God is referred to as mother, because he ain't going back to his biological mom ever again. She will not have that. You came out once, and you're staying out. If you ever come back the same way that you went. Okay? Noah. And then I want to open up for questions. Just one more piece. Noah, or in English, Noah, because King James couldn't say Noah. Remember Noah and the ark and the animals? And then the alligator, right? How does that song go? Right? They stole all these songs from our people. So Noah, our story tells us, had 3 sons. Shem. All right, Larry and Mo. All right. What the hell? Yeah, might as well. 3 sons he had. Shem, Ham, and Yafet. Now, if you were to translate every word in the Hebrew Scriptures, instead of just naming, writing the names out, you will find deep, deep mysteries. So in our mystical tradition, they did not read Shem, Ham, and Yafet. They read them as what they mean. Shem, Ham, and Yafet. Yeah, you got that right. This is ancient Hebraic A. Yafet. Yafet means beauty. See? They mean something, each of the words. Ham means hot. Shem means name or essence. These are the 3 offspring of Noah and his wife Naamah. So the ancient mystics tell us that these are not just people who came out of the ark and who lived in the ark that floated on the waters during the great flood. These are the descriptions of the different ways in which you operate in life. These are the 3 different levels in which the soul operates in the body. Just like the lion, one's a donkey, one's a prophet, right? So, Shem, name, essence, represents the uniqueness of you, the neshama, that part of you that is totally and distinguishably you, and nobody can ever know you, not even yourself. That's how distinct it is. Ham represents the lion place, the heart place, the emotion place, the warrior place. Because you're not going to do anything warrior-like without feeling. Right? Okay, get up there and talk. All right. I'm going to tell you tonight about the lion and the prophet and the donkey. And their symbolic meaning for what they imply in each our lives daily, weekly, and annually. I will first begin by telling the story from the first book of Kings, chapter 13, the whole chapter actually. Right? Nothing happens. I will also drink a little water while I am talking, which is a very difficult task. I will try anyway so as not to waste any time. I love this stuff. What did you do to this stuff? I like to look in that face. You know, I don't know what Nan and Rick put in my drinks when I come here. I come here really mellow. Tired from a whole day of appointments with people. And somehow I drink the stuff they give me, and man, I can talk for another 6 hours. So, hot, right? This is where you feel the heat, the aliveness, the lion. Right here, that's the heart, that's the ruach, the spirit part of the soul. And then you have Yafet, beauty. My body, not my body, bodies of other people that we've known, seen on TV. Because if not for my donkey, my body, I wouldn't be beautiful. You know, it's really not, it's really gross to look at someone without skin, you know? So if we were just bones and intestines walking around, you know, carrying our intestines over our shoulder, it wouldn't be beautiful. If you were just watching microscopic plant, or rather what I'm trying to say is the microscopic underneath the isopropyl and all those things that I failed in biology learning, the outer garment of the leaf, you know, it wouldn't be anything you want to look at except under a microscope. Just like you wouldn't want to see anything else. You wouldn't want to see your okay, I'll stop right here. So beauty is the donkey, which means beauty is the spirit in its fullest manifestation and integration in the form of the earth, trees, animals, people. This is the outer garment of everything. The outer garment is beauty, is what's important. If I'm standing, you know, like I hike around I live in the middle of nowhere. I don't even know where it is, like I told you. So whenever I go out to walk every day, I go out there hiking, and I stand on top of my cliff, and I see this vista view of endless mesas and mountains, and it's just incredible. And then I climb down into it because I want to make love to it, and it's gone, right? Because the outer garment is gone, because I'm in it. I'm in it. I'm in the middle of it. So yeah, it's beautiful, it's pretty, it's a nice rock over there, a nice tree over there, it's very nice. I trip over a log, a little stone, a couple little leaves, a little cactus. That's really sweet. But it's nothing like standing from afar and seeing it as its whole, seeing its outer garment. Tov mareh na'im maseh atzmo, the ancients taught. More powerful is the visual impact from afar than the actually going into the Grand Canyon, right? You stand at Grand Canyon, it's beautiful. You get the rope, you climb down, and hello, how do I get out of here? Nothing but a wall here, right? A lot of beauty. The beauty is the outer garment of everything that we see. So the donkey is what integrates all of this. It takes my essence, because my uniqueness and your uniqueness is portrayed, is advertised in your outward appearance. And your emotions, how you feel today, is going to show in your donkey. You can be depressed, you can be joyful, you can be someone who looks very far away from the pretty people on TV. But you can be in a happy, good mood, and you'll be so beautiful to look at, because you will resonate to others around you something that's more than just your outward appearances or failure to look as good as they do on TV, because your beauty, your outward appearances, your donkey is integrating all of the rest of you and shining it forth. This is why in the Hebrew language, the ancient Hebrew language, the word for skin is or, and the word for light is or. Very similar to aura. Your skin is your light. Your skin is that which exudes and puts forth what it is that you are inside. So the three offspring of Noah and Naamah represent the three ways in which the soul manifests in the body. And Shem, the name essence, that uniqueness, is very crucial for everything else that filters and translates through the rest of us. If I'm not in touch with my uniqueness, if I do not trust my journey, anybody can come along and sidetrack me. The mystery of a good relationship is not becoming the same as the other, but becoming as different as you can possibly be, meaning being as much yourself and having that relationship be the kind of relationship that does not drown who you are and blot it all out with one fell swoop into someone else's reality, but on the contrary, enhances who you are, shines a spotlight and brings forth the best of who you are. You've never known a better self before. And sometimes we have to leave relationships to find that. Whatever it takes. Just don't blame me for it. I have nothing to do with it. Any questions so far? The man in the back with the funny ears.
So, to paraphrase your story tonight, if you get this God assignment or whatever, then you want to stay on the path, you don't want to get on the wrong plane or eat the food, and otherwise you might find yourself going back on your ass or lying in the road or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's it. Wow, I could have just said that in 3 minutes. I want to apologize for taking all this time.
Well, where's the profit in it?
Huh? Ah, very good. Very good. You should be here. I should be filming you. I have this backwards. Yes, uniqueness is very important. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It says in the Torah, it says, you shall love your fellow like yourself. So the ancient teachers say, well, what does that mean? Well, it means if I don't like myself, I'm going to have trouble liking you. Yes?
Well, this doesn't speak to the focus of your lecture, but the thing that I really like about a lot of what you teach us is the connection between the word and or the name for someone and what the word really means and that kind of thing. When you talk about Noah's kids and that each of them name, represents a particular part, how did it work out that he had 3 kids and he named each of them one of each part?
Very good question. Well, let's look at Noah's name and his wife's name, okay? Noah's name was Noah. Noah. And his wife's name was Naamah. Na'ama literally means pleasant. Noach literally means respite or consolation, which at times is really the same thing. Consolation is respite from whatever you're grieving. So pleasant and respite get together. Now, it's interesting, Noah's grandfather, his name was Methuselah. Everybody knows the word Methuselah, or in Hebrew, Metushelah, which literally means he who sends away death. Metu means death. Shelach means sent away. That's why he lived 980 or 90 years, almost 1,000 years old when he died. The oldest man in the story. The oldest. So, respite, which means menucha, which means resting, which means manifestation, which means slouching into the couch, which means total integration, like really allowing the resting to sink deeper and deeper and deeper, allowing the soul to fully sink into its manifestation in the body. Pleasant is what it takes to do this. If life around you or in you or in your head and your heart is not pleasant, it's hard to fully manifest. In fact, in the tradition about healing, the mystical healing teachings in Judaism, it talks about how the soul begins to leave the body when things aren't good, which in turn creates illness. So illness is actually a momentum toward death caused by the soul ebbing from the body, not wanting to manifest, not wanting to settle in, to rest in the body. And therefore joy and song and dance, which were used in healing, and I still use it when I do healing ceremonies, through chanting, are ways in which the soul is brought back into manifestation in the body, thereby creating wellness and pleasant. So pleasant creates respite or rest. Now, the naming of the three boys, right, is then the result of all this. Once the soul manifests, then the continuation of the filtering is now described through the three boys. Because what is happening when these boys are born is that the world is about to be destroyed in the story. The great flood is coming, and it's going to take Noah lots of time, many years to build this ark. He's raising these three boys. He's naming the three boys the ingredients that the future world needs to learn from in understanding and acknowledging the various parts of their soul that, when split, creates the havoc that in turn brings the devastation. And so he names his boys as a gift to the future. If the world survives, this is cute, but not enough. This is for great enlightened people, such as yourself. But as for the other people who didn't come tonight, there's a requirement of acknowledgement of essence and of passion or heat, right, the hot part, and the donkey, which is, and I mean the beauty, right? So the three names of the three sons, Shem, Ham, and Yafes, becomes sort of a teaching of how to not have the world destroyed again. And now the Kabbalah then takes off from this and creates the three names of the soul, or the 5 ways in which the soul manifests. The top one is called, I'm sorry. Let's call I'm sorry. It's called Yechida. And Nama corresponds with Chaya. And then you have Neshama. And then you have Ruach. And you have Nefesh. Nefesh. Yechida means one with. When you're rested, when you're respited, and you're relaxed, the integration completely is intact. You're one with everything. You're a Buddhist. When there's pleasantness, you're in joy and pleasantness, Chaya. Chaya means aliveness. I cannot experience my aliveness fully if I am being fragmented by unpleasantness around me. How do I get to these places? Through Shem, Cham, and Yafet. By walking my life with an acknowledgement of my uniqueness, the uniqueness of my essence, with a passion that is the requisite for my warrior within, and beauty. How I come to whatever I come to. How I manifest myself in the world. Thereby, I come full circle, because this is total integration, and this is total integration. The donkey. So these are the 5 names of the ways in which the soul manifests in the body, corresponding to Noach and Nama as the 2 transcendent levels of soul realization, and then the 3 boys representing down home earth of how to get to those transcendent places. This is not unusual in the Hebrew scriptures, that people name their kids as a teaching. You see this in the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu. Isaiah names his boys and everything from God is with us, Emmanuel, to Prince of Peace and everything else. These are names that, and then actually says, later on in the book of Isaiah, he says, I have named my children by your word and by to symbolize the message that he got. I named my children after your message. So the kids were named by the message, the nature of the message that Isaiah had for the people of his time. Any other questions? Anybody else have a question? Yes.
Going back to the story that you told, the parable, is there anything in the teaching about how easy it was for the prophet to lose his way? It seemed that it was very easy for him to lose his uniqueness, to lose that identity.
Yeah, good question. What made it so easy for him to lose his way? I mean, he even spoke, to make the question stronger, the man spoke to the king. The king invited him. The man with all the power of all the tribes invited him to come and dine, and he said, no way. And yet this other prophet comes and says, and so the teaching about that is that the most dangerous influence that sidetracks us and that distracts us from our path are the people closest to us, like-minded people. What are you, an Aquarian? So am I. Did you like Harry Potter too?
Yeah.
I did too. We have so much in common. Come with me. For I too have heard the same voice you have. I too think the same way you do. If that's so, why do we have 3,000 different peoples? Like for example, there's a synagogue. I'll give you a Jewish example. Synagogue in a Jewish community. Everybody's like-minded. Everybody's loving it. It's great. 6 months down the line, I don't know, there's too much Hebrew and not enough English. We split. Make another synagogue. Oh, I thought we were like-minded. Oh, this is more like-minded. Okay, now everybody that likes it this way, ooh, we're gathering a lot of people here. This is great. Okay, then we do this, we do that. It's very fun. Hey, I don't know. I don't like this too much. I like it less prayer, more teaching. Okay, split. Now that's the guy. And split and split and split. No matter how like-minded you get in communities and communes, relationships, there's always going to be something that's going to challenge you. Yes?
I was thinking this morning we were talking about the delicate balance and talking about that now, about our need for individuality versus our need for a sense of belonging. It's again that delicate
That's right. Exactly. It's a very delicate dance between the need of the individual and the influence of the community. And it's why it's so important for community to be really a healthy community. It needs to foster the individual. Otherwise, there will be no individuals to nurture the community. See, communities fall apart because the focus is often too much on the community, on the collective, to the neglect of the individual, so that eventually you eradicate all of the individuals, and there's no one left to give life to the community, to the collective. In order for community to exist in a very healthy way, it needs to nurture the individual, so that the individual can have his or her life force intact and uniqueness intact, which in turn contributes to the well-being and the perpetuation of the community.
Back to the skin, light.
That's right. Exactly. So there's a constant theme throughout these stories about the importance of the community and the importance of the individual. Without one, there is no other.